unaware he had just inherited a $1 trillion trust fund. Ethan Walker stood barefoot in the freezing snow, cradling his newborn son against his chest, while the woman he loved, Madison Hayes, slammed the door behind her and walked away from him, leaving him and her newborn to starve in the snow. But what he did next would one day make her fall to her knees and beg. Moments earlier, Madison had screamed that she was done with a broke, useless man who couldn't provide even a warm blanket. Not knowing the man she insulted was now the heir to a financial empire larger than every bank she dreamed of impressing. Ethan's breath trembled as he shielded the crying baby from the icy wind, his heart breaking not just from the cold, but from the betrayal of a woman who once pressed her vows into his palms with trembling devotion. But Madison wasn't thinking about vows. She was thinking about the luxury penthouse promised by her new lover, a man who whispered that Ethan would never amount to anything. Yet how could she have known she was abandoning not a poor, struggling father, but the sole beneficiary of a $1 trillion trust fund built over generations? And as Ethan stepped into the storm with nothing but determination burning beneath his shivering frame, one question echoed in the night. When the truth finally confronts her, what will Madison do when the man she discarded becomes powerful enough to decide her fate? The snowstorm roared against the dimly lit street as Ethan Walker tightened his grip on the threadbare blanket wrapped around his newborn son. The cold felt alive, biting through his skin, crawling into his bones. But nothing hurt more than the echo of the door Madison had slammed moments before. It still vibrated in his ears like a final verdict. He stared at the crooked wooden porch of the house they once shared, its chipped paint, the rusty railing he'd always promised to fix, the flickering porch light that now illuminated only emptiness. 4 years. He believed the smallness of their life made them closer, made them determined, made them fighters. But tonight showed him something harsher. Sometimes the person standing beside you in the storm isn't there to endure it with you. Sometimes they create the storm. The baby whimpered, tiny fingers curling toward Ethan's chest, as if seeking warmth Madison no longer cared to give. Ethan swallowed the ache rising in his throat. "It's okay, Liam," he whispered, breath fogging the air. "Daddy's still here. Daddy's not going anywhere." His words cracked, but they were true. Even if the world abandoned him, even if Madison chose another man, he would not abandon his child. He took a slow step forward, snow crunching beneath his bare feet. The pain was sharp at first, then numbness began to spread upward like a warning he ignored. He couldn't think about the cold. He couldn't think about the betrayal twisting inside him. All he could think about was keeping Liam alive. But as he trudged forward, the memories he tried to outrun surged back. Madison laughing in the kitchen the day they met, flour on her palms, her eyes softening when she told him she was pregnant. The way she cried on his shoulder when she said she feared repeating her mother's mistakes. He had believed her. He had believed every trembling confession she made at 2 a.m. But somewhere between the baby arriving and the bills piling up, her heart had shifted, and someone else had been waiting to catch it. Ethan saw the signs too late. The late-night texts she hid, the sudden obsession with expensive perfumes she couldn't afford, the way she looked at him not with love, but with disappointment, as if his existence had become a burden she despised carrying. Earlier that evening, she had screamed at him that she was tired of living like the wife of a failure. Those words carved deeper wounds than the freezing wind ever could. Unaware of the $1 trillion trust fund his late grandfather had quietly placed in his name 3 days before his death, Ethan still believed he was the same broke man struggling to buy diapers. He had no idea that lawyers were already searching for him, that the world he belonged to was about to shift beneath his frozen feet. He had grown up thinking his grandfather had little, an old military pension, a small cabin, a few dusty photo albums. He never imagined the man had built an empire of silent investments, hidden mergers, and generational wealth buried behind layers of private trust structures. Not even Ethan's parents knew. The old man trusted only him. Ethan's legs trembled as freezing wind slapped against his face, He reached the end of the street and paused under a street lamp, whose yellow light barely cut through the storm. Somewhere inside him, something cracked, not from weakness, but from awakening. Tears blurred his vision, but his jaw tightened. He would not die here. Liam would not die here. And Madison would learn that the man she dismissed with a laugh was never meant to stay small. A flash of memory pierced him, his grandfather holding his shoulder the week before he passed, saying, "Ethan, life will not always tell you your worth. Sometimes it waits for you to prove you know it." At the time, Ethan thought it was just the rambling of an old man nearing goodbye. Now the words felt heavy, purposeful, as if the universe was repeating them in the howl of the wind. He rubbed Liam's tiny back, feeling the baby's breath slowing dangerously. Panic surged. He looked left, darkness. Right, more snow. He could barely see the old bus stop ahead, but it was the only structure offering even a hint of shelter. He stumbled toward it, each step tearing skin from his feet. When he finally collapsed under the metal awning, shielding Liam with his entire body, he exhaled a shaky breath of relief. The storm still swirled around them, but for a moment, it felt like the world had stopped pushing him down. As he held the baby close, something unfamiliar flickered inside him, a quiet fire. Not anger, not bitterness, but resolve. A vow forming silently. He would rise, not for revenge, not even for pride, but for the tiny life in his arms who deserved a world warmer than this freezing night. And when the truth of the $1 trillion trust fund emerged, when Madison realized what she had thrown away for empty promises and temporary comforts, she would face the consequences of her choice. But Ethan wasn't thinking of punishing her. He was thinking of becoming the man his son needed, the man his grandfather believed he could be, the man who would never again let anyone decide his worth. The storm raged on, unaware a giant was awakening in the snow. The storm had eased by morning, but the cold still clung to Ethan like a second skin. He jolted awake on the bus stop bench, his arms stiff from protecting Liam through the night. The baby whimpered weakly, exhaustion draining the last of his cries. Ethan's heart clenched. Liam's tiny lips were pale, his breath shallow. He knew they couldn't stay here another minute. A father's instinct overpowered every ache in his frozen body. He gathered the baby close and stepped out onto the icy sidewalk, the wind slicing through him, as though testing his resolve. "Hang on, buddy," he whispered, voice hoarse. "Daddy's going to fix this, I swear." He started walking, though he had nowhere to go. The few neighbors he passed shot him confused or pitying glances, unsure how a man with a newborn ended up wandering barefoot in the snow. But none of them asked. No one stopped. No one noticed the way Ethan's knees buckled every few steps, or the way his jaw clenched in desperation. The world, as always, kept moving as he trudged along. His mind drifted into the past, back to the summer he met Madison. She had walked into the bookstore where he worked part-time, sunlight catching her hair, making her smile seem almost unreal. She was feisty, outspoken, too smart for her own good, and he loved her instantly. They weren't rich, but they were happy. Or at least he thought so. The memory felt distant now, like it belonged to someone else. Someone who still believed love didn't measure people by wealth or status. A low rumble interrupted his thoughts as a sleek silver SUV slowed beside him. A window rolled down, and a familiar voice called, "Ethan." Ethan Walker. Ethan stopped, blinking against the glare reflecting off the car. Inside sat a man in a charcoal coat and a navy scarf, his expression a strange mix of relief and urgency. "Thank God," the man breathed. "I've been searching for you since yesterday." Ethan had no idea who he was. He tightened his hold on Liam, instinctively stepping back. "Do I know you?" "No," the man admitted, quickly reaching into his coat pocket to pull out a business card. "My name is Samuel Turner. I'm your grandfather's estate attorney." Ethan stared blankly. "My grandfather? He didn't own anything. He barely." Samuel shook his head firmly. "Ethan, there's something you don't understand. Your grandfather wasn't who you thought he was." Ethan's heartbeat thudded unevenly. A strange unease curling through his chest. What do you mean? Samuel exhaled slowly, studying him with softened eyes. It's a long story, but the short version is this. You are the sole beneficiary of the Walker Legacy Trust, a private, multi-generational fund valued at over $1 trillion. The words didn't register at first. They couldn't. Ethan stared at him, confused, exhausted, too numb to react. $1 trillion. What? $1 trillion? Samuel repeated gently. Your grandfather hid his wealth intentionally. He wanted it protected, until the right hour, until you were ready. Ethan felt the ground tilt beneath him. Last night he couldn't even buy formula. Last night Madison told him he'd never be enough. Last night he had nothing. Now this stranger was telling him he owned more than entire nations. But disbelief clashed with desperation as Liam let out a faint, pained cry. Ethan snapped back to reality. Please, my son. He needs warmth. He needs help. I don't care about money right now. Samuel nodded quickly. Get in. We'll go straight to a private clinic. Everything is ready for you. Ethan hesitated for only a heartbeat before climbing into the warm SUV. Liam nestled into his chest, soothed by the sudden heat. Ethan's eyes stung. Relief was a fragile thing, but in this moment it wrapped around him, blanket dot, as the SUV sped down the road. Samuel glanced at Ethan through the rearview mirror. We were notified of your grandfather's death 3 days ago. He left explicit instructions that once the documents were finalized, we were to locate you immediately. But when we arrived at your house, your wife said you had left without explanation. Ethan's stomach twisted. He looked down at Liam. She told me to get out. She didn't want us anymore. Samuel tightened his grip on the steering wheel. I'm sorry, he murmured, but maybe this is the beginning of a new chapter. Ethan wanted to believe that, but the pain was still a fresh wound. Even now, part of him replayed Madison's last words. You're nothing, Ethan. Nothing. She walked away so easily, so coldly. A woman he had loved with everything, but love died quickly in people who worshipped wealth. Samuel continued. Once Liam is safe, you'll need to visit the firm. There are documents to sign, accounts to activate, security protocols to initiate. The trust is massive and complicated, and you'll need a full protection team. A protection team. Ethan breathed, startled. Ethan, you are now one of the richest men in the world. People will come for you politically, financially, even personally. A chill unrelated to the cold ran through him. Madison's new lover, her desperation for status, her hunger for wealth. What would she do when she learned the truth? Ethan looked out the window at the world rushing by, the snow melting beneath the rising sun. He didn't know what the next hours would hold, but one thing felt inevitable. The woman who abandoned him and their child would soon realize the magnitude of her mistake. And when that moment arrived, she would beg for what she once threw away. The private clinic felt like another world. Warm lights, polished floors, crisp air scented faintly of antiseptic and lavender. Ethan stood beside the hospital bed, where Liam now slept peacefully. Wrapped in soft blankets Madison never bothered to buy. A pediatric specialist had assured him the baby would recover fully with warmth, rest, and proper care. Ethan exhaled a breath he didn't realize he had been holding since the snowstorm. For the first time in hours, the fear that had clawed at him finally eased. Liam was safe, that was all that mattered. But as the tiny child's chest rose and fell, Ethan's own heart felt increasingly heavy. He lowered into the chair beside the bed, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor. Everything had changed in a matter of hours. Too fast for him to understand. $1 trillion trust fund, a legacy he never knew existed. How could a man who spent years counting coins to buy food suddenly be told he now commanded a fortune that could feed countries? His grandfather's words replayed in his mind, sharper now, as if spoken directly into this room. Life won't always tell you your worth. Ethan swallowed hard. Maybe the old man had known exactly what Ethan would face: poverty, betrayal, judgment. Maybe he knew Ethan needed to be broken before he could be rebuilt. A soft knock sounded at the door. Samuel turned, stepped inside, a folder tucked under his arm. He paused when he saw Ethan's expression. "How is Liam?" "Resting," Ethan said quietly. "They said he'll be fine." Samuel nodded with visible relief. "Good. Then we need to talk." Ethan straightened as Samuel sat across from him, opening the folder. Inside were documents embossed with gold crests, signatures of men he had never met, and account numbers that meant nothing to him. "Your grandfather structured the Walker Legacy Trust in secrecy," Samuel explained. "Its assets include private equity holdings, offshore accounts, hundreds of properties, mineral rights, intellectual property portfolios. And that's only the surface." Ethan stared. "Why me? Why didn't he tell anyone else?" "Because you were the only one he trusted," Samuel replied gently. "Your parents have made questionable decisions. Your uncles are opportunistic. Your cousins would have sold everything in days. But he saw humility, integrity, and resilience. That mattered more to him than anything." Ethan felt a lump gather in his throat. He remembered the old man teaching him how to fix fences at the cabin, showing him how to fish, telling him stories of times when honor meant something. Ethan didn't know his grandfather was teaching him how to be a king without ever mentioning a throne. As Samuel continued explaining legal structures and fiduciary responsibilities, Ethan's mind drifted again, this time to Madison. He saw her face clearly, twisted in irritation as she shoved him aside. Her voice cold as she said, "I'm not wasting my life with a man who can't provide even a decent home." He thought of the way she clung to her new lover, Chase Donovan, a man who flaunted wealth like a costume. Ethan had always felt something off about him, too charming, too generous with lies, too smooth with promises he didn't intend to keep. Madison didn't choose love when she left. She chose status. She chose comfort. She chose someone she thought would give her the life Ethan could in single quotes did. Everything inside Ethan shifted. Not anger, no. Something deeper. Something colder. A realization. Madison's betrayal wasn't accidental. It was deliberate. Calculated. She walked away from her newborn without hesitation. She left a man she believed had no future. But what would she do when she learned the truth? Could she handle the shame? The regret? The world she craved now belonged to the man she discarded in the snow. As Samuel finished speaking and closed the folder. "Ethan, there's something else." The tone made Ethan tense. "Your grandfather instructed us to prepare for the possibility of social, financial, and even criminal threats once your inheritance becomes public. You will need bodyguards, a secure residence, controlled communication channels." "I don't want any of that," Ethan whispered. "You have no choice," Samuel said softly. "You're no longer just Ethan Walker. You're the heir to one of the largest private fortunes in existence. People will come for you. Some will beg. Some will deceive. Some will threaten." The unspoken implication hung in the air. Madison and Chase. "What if I don't want this life?" Ethan murmured, rubbing his temples. Samuel leaned forward. "Then do it for your son. Liam's future depends on the decisions you make now. He deserves safety, stability, opportunity. That trust fund is his birthright too." Ethan gazed at Liam, his tiny hands curled into perfect fists. The thought of giving his son a world where he never had to feel cold, hungry, or unloved made something inside Ethan harden into resolve. "Fine," he whispered. "I'll do what needs to be done." A buzz sounded from Samuel's phone. He glanced at it, frowned, then looked up with concern. "Ethan, your wife just posted something online." Ethan stiffened. "What?" Samuel hesitated before handing him the screen. A picture filled it. Madison smiling smugly beside Chase, holding a champagne glass, captioned, "Finally with a real man. Upgrade season." Ethan stared at the photo, his breath tightening. Madison looked radiant, joyful even. No remorse, no guilt, no shame for abandoning her child. For a moment, Ethan felt the cold of the snowstorm rush back into his bones. But then he breathed out slowly, lips tightening. "Samuel," he said quietly, "what time do we leave for the firm?" "In 2 hours. "Good," Ethan replied, eyes fixed on his sleeping son. "Let's get started." because the world Madison chased so desperately was about to become his. 2 weeks later, Manhattan glimmered with winter light as Ethan stepped out of the black armored SUV, the doors held open by 2 members of his new security team. Snow flurries drifted lazily around him, but he no longer felt the cold. The custom wool coat Samuel insisted he wear shielded him from the wind, but it was more than clothing. It was a symbol of the life he now lived. A life where his footsteps caused heads to turn. A life where boardrooms fell silent at the mention of his name. A life Madison once dreamed of. And threw away, behind him, the towering doors of Walker Global Headquarters rose like the gates of a hidden kingdom. His name now sat on every legal document, every deed, every investment protocol waiting for his signature. He had spent the last 2 weeks learning the architecture of trillion-dollar power, how alliances were negotiated quietly, how fortunes shifted with whispered agreements, how influence could be wielded without raising a voice. Ethan had grown into his role faster than anyone expected. Samuel said it was because he had humility. The board said it was because he had clarity. Ethan knew it was because he had a son to protect. Today, however, wasn't about meetings or transitions. Today was about Madison. Word had reached her. Her new lover, Chase, had gone bankrupt after one of his shady ventures collapsed. Investors fled, creditors chased him, and suddenly Madison's glamorous upgrade crumbled in her hands. She tried calling Ethan. 27 missed calls, then messages, then voicemails, then crying audio notes. He responded to none. When her attempts failed, she went further. She came here. As soon as Ethan entered the lobby, a receptionist approached him nervously. "Mr. Walker, she's still here." She refused to leave. Ethan nodded once. "Bring her in." Silence blanketed the executive lounge as Madison Hayes stood up from the velvet couch, eyes wide the moment she saw him. Her makeup was smudged, her hair messy, her once confident posture collapsed under the weight of desperation. "Ethan," her voice cracked as she took a shaky step toward him. "Please, I need to talk to you." Ethan didn't move. "I gave you a chance to talk 2 weeks ago. You told me to get out." Tears streamed down her face. "I didn't know. I didn't know about the trust fund." "Ethan, if I had known." He lifted a hand, silencing her. The gesture was calm, but it carried the authority of a man who no longer begged for love, approval, or dignity. "Exactly," he said quietly. "You didn't know." Madison froze. "That's the point." She wiped her cheeks, voice trembling. "I made a mistake. Chase lied to me. He promised me everything. He told me I deserved better than living like the wife of a broke man." Ethan finished for her, his tone steady. "Yes, I remember." Madison's knees weakened. "Please, Ethan, I'm sorry. I swear I'm sorry. I want my family back. I want Liam. I want you." Ethan stepped forward, and for a brief second, Madison's face lit with hope. But then she saw his expression and moved, unreadable, resolved. "You left your newborn in a snowstorm," he said softly. "Not because you were scared, not because you panicked, but because you believed wealth mattered more than love, more than responsibility, more than your own son." Madison crumbled to her knees, hands clasped desperately. "Ethan, please, I'll do anything, anything. I was stupid. I was selfish. I was wrong. Just, please don't shut me out." Ethan looked down at her, not with cruelty, not with satisfaction, but with the clarity of a man who finally understood his worth. "I'm not shutting you out," he said. "You walked out on us." Madison cried harder, reaching for his hand. He stepped back. A security officer approached quietly. "Mr. Walker, should we escort her out?" Ethan didn't answer immediately. He studied Madison, the woman who once held his heart, the woman he once planned a lifetime with. He remembered how she laughed on their wedding day, how she told him she couldn't imagine life without him, how quickly that changed when life tested her loyalty. Finally, he nodded. Madison sobbed louder as two guards lifted her gently, guiding her toward the exit. "Ethan, please, please don't do this. I love you. I love Liam. Please, Ethan, please." Ethan turned away, Love was not measured by words spoken in desperation. Love was measured by loyalty shown in hardship. As Madison's cries faded into the distance, Samuel approached quietly. "Are you all right?" Ethan exhaled slowly. "I'm fine." His gaze drifted to the window overlooking the city towers stretching toward the sky. Streets buzzing with life. Somewhere out there, Liam slept peacefully in their penthouse, warm and safe. Ethan's heart softened at the thought. He wasn't defined by Madison's choices anymore. He wasn't shaped by poverty or shame or abandonment. He was defined by resilience, by fatherhood, by the legacy entrusted to him. "What now?" Samuel asked. Ethan squared his shoulders. "Now, we build something bigger than the trust fund. Something Liam can grow into. Something that reflects who we are, not who people expected us to be." And as he walked toward the elevators, every step felt like a declaration. He was no longer the man left to starve in the snow. He was the man who rose from it,